भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। ॐ ज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले प्रभुपादाय प्रिय श्री गिरिराजाय स्वामी सुभक्ता राधारास बिहारी ब्रह्मपुण्यचात्मदाय नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामे नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचाराय निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चाचार्य शताय मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणम्। So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, King Chitraketu's Lamentation. So there's a couple of purport, but otherwise it's just story, so we'll do as much as we can. So you can read this.
Chapter 14, King Chitraketu's Lamentation. In this 14th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asks his spiritual master, Sukdev Goswami, how such a demon as Vritasur could become an exalted devotee. In this connection, the previous life of Vritasur is discussed. This involves the story of Chitraketu and how he was victimized by lamentation because of death of his son. Among many millions of living entities, the number of human beings is extremely small, and among human beings who are actually religious, only some are eager to be liberated from material existence. Among many thousands of people who desire relief from material existence, one is freed from the association of unwanted person or is relieved of material contamination. And among many millions of such liberated persons, one may become devotee of Lord Narayan. Therefore, such devotees are extremely rare. Since bhakti devotion service is not ordinary, Parikshit Maharaj was astonished that an asura could rise to the exalted position of a devotee. Being doubtful, Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Sukdev Goswami, who then described Vritrasur with reference to his previous birth as Chitraketu, the king of Surasen. Chitraketu, who had no sons, got an opportunity to meet the great sage Angira. When Angira inquired from the king about his welfare, the king expressed his moroseness, and therefore, by the grace of great sage, the king's first wife, Kritadyuti, gave birth to a son, who was the cause of both happiness and lamentation. Upon the birth of this son, the king and all residents of the palace were very happy. The co-wives of Kritadyuti, however, were envious, and later they administered poison to the child Chitraketu, who was overwhelmed by shock of his son's death. Then Narad Muni and Angira went to see him.
Shri Parikshit Uvacha Rajastama Swabhavasya Brahman Kri Vitrasasya Papmanaha Narayane Bhagavati Katham Asidridha Matihi. King Parikshit inquired from Shukdev Goswami, O learned Brahmana, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. How then could Vritrasura have attained such exalted love for the Supreme Person of Godhead, Narayana? Purport. In this material world, everyone is obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. However, unless one conquers these modes and comes to the platform of goodness, there is no chance of one's becoming a pure devotee. This is confirmed by Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita 7.28. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva maho nirmukta bhajante mam drida vrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determinations. Since Vritrasura was among the demons, Maharaj Parikshit wondered how was it possible for him to have become such an exalted devotee. Now, contradictory, Vritrasura, right? And a devotee. Devotee better than Indra. So this is like, how come? Text 2. Devanam Shuddha Sattvatnam Rishinam Chalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayeno Pajayate. Demigods situated in the mode of goodness and great saints cleansed of the dirt of material enjoyment hardly ever render pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Mukunda. Therefore, how could Vritrasura have become such a great devotee? So, meaning devas and rishis, right? Even they, God, they're not ready to render pure devotional service to Mukunda. This is big message for all of us, right? Rajobhi sama sankhyatas parthiver iha jantavah tesham ye kechane hante shreyo vai manujadayah. In this material world, there are many living entities as atoms. Among these living entities, a very few are human beings, and among them, few are interested in following religious principles. Prayo mumuksha vastesham केचनैव द्विजोत्तमा मुमुक्षूणां सहस्रेषु कश्चिन्मुच्यते सिद्ध्यति. O best of the Brahmanas, Shukadeva Goswami, out of many persons who follow religious principles, O best of the Brahmanas, Shukadeva Goswami, out of many persons who follow religious principles, only a few desire liberation from the material world. So they are religious, but they don't want liberation. They're not interested, right? Among many thousands who desire liberation, one may actually achieve liberation, giving up material attachment to society, friendship, love, country, home, wife, and children. And among thousands of such liberated persons, one who can understand the true meaning of liberation is very rare. So really like it's a funnel, right? Really like it's a funnel. There are 4 classes of men, namely karmis, jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. This statement pertains specially to karmis and jnanis. A karmi tries to be happy within the material world by changing from one body to another. His objective is bodily comfort, either in this planet or in another. When such a person becomes a jnani, however, he aspires for liberation from material bondage. Meaning the karmis, they, then this situation that they're not happy, and then, okay, let me change, okay, it's not good, let me change, right? Finally, the planet itself is not good, so they change and go to another planet, right? So he goes up and down like this. Well, chapter, your famous Purushottam Yoga, right? That's why I describe this tree, the banyan tree, of this material body. So I heard Prabhupada saying that, so it's a tree bears a fruit. So when the fruit becomes ripe, then it falls off, right? So he said that fruit is like the body that we have developed. It's coming from the fruit, from the tree, right? Then he says that, so this fruit, so when the fruit is ripe and it drops off, it doesn't mean that the tree has died, right? So he says, similarly, our existence is like that tree. We don't die. The tree continues to exist. Only we have changed body. So this is the karma, right? So after we have done this for God knows how many millions and millions of times, so we come there, what is all this, we have to die. So it starts getting the psyche, right? So then you become a jnani. And then the jnani say, okay, let me get chutkara, right? Let this all be over, let it be over. So among many such persons who aspire for liberation, one may actually be liberated during his life. Jivan mukta, right? You're liberated. Such a person gives up his attachment to society, for society. He doesn't want to socialize. Friendship, always looking out with the friends to just sit and gossip. Love, country, family, wife, and children. Among many such persons who are in the vanaprastha stage, one may understand the value of becoming a sannyasi, completely accepting the renounced order of life. Text 5. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayanaha sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamuni. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayan. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. Sudurlabha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following purport to this verse. Simply desiring mukti or liberation is insufficient. One must become factually liberated. We are sitting and thinking, what am I doing in this world? won't sink in thinking, but we are not actually liberated. We're only dreaming, right? When one understands the futility of the materialistic way of life, one becomes advanced in knowledge, and therefore he situates himself in the Vanaprastha order, unattached to family, wife, and children. One should then further progress to the platform of sannyas, the actual renounced order, never to fall again and be afflicted by materialistic life. Even though one desires to be liberated, this doesn't mean he is liberated. Only rarely is someone liberated. Indeed, although many men take sannyas to become liberated, because of the imperfections, they again become attached to women, material activities, social welfare work, and so on. So we want to be liberated, but we end up doing things we never intended to do. Jnanis, yogis, and karmis devoid of devotional service are called offenders. Jnani, yogis, and karmis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mayavadi Krishna Aparadhi. One who thinks that everything is Maya instead of thinking that everything is Krishna is called an Aparadhi or offender. Although the Mayavadis, impersonalists, are offenders at the lotus feet of Krishna, they may nonetheless be counted among the Siddhas, those who have realized the self. They may be considered nearer to spiritual perfection because at least they have realized what spiritual life is. If such a person becomes Narayana Parayana, a devotee of Lord Narayan, he is better than a Jivan Mukta, one who is liberated or perfect. This requires higher intelligence. So now Prabhupada speaks of two kinds of jnanis. One is inclined to devotional service and the other to impersonal realization. I hope in your mind you're able to, usually I will, on my board, right, I will write jnanis. Jnanis 1, jnani 2. One who is aiming for devotional service and the other one is impersonalism. So impersonalists generally undergo great endeavor for no tangible benefit. And therefore it is said that they are husking paddy that has no grain. Stula tushava ghatinaha. The other class of jnanis, whose jnana is mixed with bhakti, are also of two kinds. Those who are devoted to the so-called false form or the personality of Godhead, and those who understand the Supreme Person Godhead as Sachid Anand Vigraha, the actual spiritual form. So the other class of jnani, whose jnana is mixed with bhakti, so two kinds. So one who is devoted to the so-called false form. So these are like the impersonalists who temporarily they accept the form of Vishnu. So they're practicing bhakti. They practice the method of bhakti, but they are not bhaktas. So that's how in India you walk around, you can't recognize who's a bhakta because he speaks like a bhakta, but actually he's an impersonalist. Right? I don't know, somebody posted one, those animated Krishna, right? And there is some katha person who's giving, very cute, very interesting. They send me this, and I say, what is this? Does it happen like this? So it looks like they invent stories also to just fit, their program, right? But you are attracted because you see the form of Krishna. Say, oh, how cute. And then, it was about energies. Lucky we are reading Prabhupada's books, right? So we understand which energy, right? So this person, he got completely mixed up with the energies. And very nicely they post on our groups, right? Because they don't know. They're not studying Bhagavatam as it is, right? So they prefer to watch TV, right? Watch TV and those small cartoons, which is very cute, but not according to philosophy. So that's how you don't know whether this speaker is a Mayavadi or he's an actual Bhakta. So you can catch if you're studying what Prabhupada is explaining here. Yeah, the Mayavadi devotees, just see Prabhupada called them. The Mayavadi devotees worship Narayana or Vishnu with the idea that Vishnu has accepted a form of Maya and that the ultimate truth is actually impersonal. The pure devotee, however, never think that Vishnu has accepted a body of Maya. Instead, he knows perfectly well that the original absolute truth is the Supreme Person. Such a devotee is actually situated in knowledge. He never merges in the Brahman effulgence. You know, like the story of Mirabai, right? So famous, right? All her bhajan and everything. I don't know if there's anybody more famous than her, right? But what do they show in the end? Yeah. So I don't know what it is. They show that finally she merged, right? So we don't know who is who, what is what, and who's inventing, right? As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.233. Yanye ravindaksha vimuktamaninas dvayastha bhavada vishuddha bhudhayah aruya krishnena param padam tataha patantyadunadrita yushmanangrayah. O Lord, the intelligence of those who think themselves liberated but have no devotion is impure. Even though they rise to the highest point of liberation by dint of severe penances and austerities, they are sure to fall down again into material existence, for they do not take shelter at your lotus feet. So, what is this taking shelter at your lotus feet? You know, you think all those who are doing penances and austerities, keeping, vrat, going all Badrinath, Kedarnath, doing circumambulation of Govardhan, right? We think that, according to us, we think that they are great devotees, but they do not take shelter of your lotus feet. So what is that? They're doing such great, severe penances and austerities. They do not take shelter at your lotus feet. What does that mean? Yes, they are not actually accepting Krishna in their hearts. They're actually not accepting Krishna. They're only thinking this is a representative, and all these activities that I'm doing, it is for my good. I will get something in return from it, right? Evidence of the same point is also given in Bhagavad Gita, where 9.11, wherein the Lord says, Avajananti mam mudha manishim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mamam bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know me, my transcendental nature, and my supreme dominion over all that be. When rascals, mudhas, see that Krishna acts exactly like a human being, they deride the transcendental form of the Lord because they do not know the Param Bhavam, his transcendental form and activities. Such persons are further described in Bhagavad Gita 9.12 as follows. Moghasha mugha karmanu mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shitaha. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So, see, like they are jnanis, right? We are describing the jnanis. Such persons do not know that Krishna's body is not material. There is no distinction between Krishna's body and his soul. But because less intelligent men see Krishna as a human being, they deride him. They cannot imagine how a person like Krishna could be the origin of everything. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Such persons are described as moghashaha, baffled in their hopes. Whatever they desire for the future will be baffled. Even if they apparently engage in devotional service, they are described as moghashaha because they ultimately desire to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Alright? So everybody goes for parikrama in Vrindavan, right? Or they go for this Vaikuntha Ekadashi, right? Everybody is going, so but you don't know who's who, what they want. In their heart, you can't see, right? Those who aspire to be elevated to the heavenly planets by devotional service will also be frustrated because this is not the result of devotional service. So the result of devotional service doesn't mean that you go to heavenly planet. However, they are also given a chance to engage in devotional service and be purified. So why they are just being accepted? Otherwise, they just be thrown out. So why they being accepted? Because the philosophy of bhakti is such that let everybody come, right? Whoever it may be, akama, sarvakama, muksha kama udarido, tivrena bhakti yogena, yajate purisham param. Whoever you may be, full of desire, zero desires, desire for moksha, whatever you may be, come to Krishna. So they are given a chance to engage in devotion service and be purified, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17. Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Vidandastu Yadani Vidunoti Surit Satam. So this is very famous. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. We know this, right? This famous verse. Unless the dirt within the core of one's heart is cleansed away, one cannot become a pure devotee. Therefore, the word Sudur Labha, very rarely found, is used in this verse. Not only among hundreds and thousands, but among millions of perfected, liberated souls, a pure devotee is hardly ever found. My God, so even though you have so many millions of liberated, and where will you fit in among all this, right? You're not even liberated, right? And what's happening with that one pure devotee? Therefore, the words Kotishvapi are used herein. Srila Madhvacharya gives the following quotations from the Tantra Bhagavad. So many liberated souls, but hardly anyone a pure devotee. Navakotyascha devanam rishiya saptakotayah natrayanaya naha sarve kittatparayanah. There are 90 million demigods. 90 million demigods. And 70 million sages, rishis, who are called Narayana Yana, devotees of Lord Krishna, of Narayan. So there are 90 million devas and 70 million sages, and they are known as devotees of Lord Narayan. All right? Among them, only a few are called Narayana Parayana, the devotees of Narayan. All right? But only a few are actually devotees. Narayanayana Deva Rishadhyasta Parayanaha Brahmadhya Kechaneva Syu Siddho Yogra Sukham Labhani. The difference between the Siddhas and Narayana Parayanas is that direct devotees are called Narayana Parayanas, whereas those who perform various types of mystic yoga are called Siddhas. So they're technical words. But understand the point, understand that among millions of people, hardly anyone is interested in Krishna. All right. So, Amrita, loudly. Katham papam sarvalokopanapana itham adamati Krishna asit sangayam parade. Hare Krishna. Translation. Vrittasura was situated in the blazing fire of battle and was an infamous, sinful demon, always engaged in giving troubles and anxieties to others. How could such a demon become so greatly Krishna conscious? Purport. It has been described that a Narayana Prayana, a pure devotee, is rarely found even among millions and millions of persons. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was surprised that Vrittasura, whose purpose was to give trouble and anxiety to others, was one of those devotees, even on battlefield. What was the reason for Vrittasura's advancement? Text. In Narayana Parayana, pure devotees rarely found even among millions and millions of persons, right? So how come Vritrasura, who is a Sura, Vritra, expanding himself and harassing others, how can he be Krishna conscious? It's not possible. Text Shantokolutulam Prabho Ya Porushena Samre Sahasrasham Matatoshasham. Translation. My dear Lord Sukdev Goswami, although Vrittasura was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a good devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear of this from you. Text 8. Shivsutavacha Parikshottvama Samamprashan Bhagavan Badarayani Nishyam Shadya Danyasya Pratinanda Vacho Abravit. Translation. Shri Suta Goswami said, after hearing Parikshit Maharaj's very intelligent question, Sukdev Goswami, the most powerful sage, began answering his disciple with great affection. Shri Shuka Uvacha Shamsehito Rajan Ittihamam Ima Yatha Srutam Divapapayana Mukhan Naradayagavite. Translation. Shri Sukdev Goswami said, O King, I shall speak to you the same history I have heard from the mouths of Vyasdeva, Narada and Devala. Please listen with attention. Text 10. Asidaja Sarvabhoma Shurya Senu Shavenapa Chitraketu Ikhanyanam Sasyastita Kamamurmadi. Translation. O King Parishit, in the province of Sursena, there was a king named Chitraketu, who ruled the entire earth. During his reigns, the earth produced all the necessities for life. Purport. Here the most significant statement is that the earth completely produced all the necessities of life during the time of King Chitraketu. As stated in Ishopanishad, Mantra 1st, Ishvayam idam sarvam yat kincha jagat parotyate tena tekena bhujetha magdev kasya dedam.
Everything, animate or inanimate, that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Krishna, the Supreme Controller, has created the material world which is completely perfect and free from scarcity. The Lord supplies the necessity to all living entities. These necessities come from the earth, and thus the earth is the source of supply. When there is a good ruler, their source produces the necessity of life abundantly. However, when there is not such a good ruler, there will be scarcity. This is the significance of the word Kama Dukkha. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.10.4, it is said, Kamam Vavarsa Parjanya Sarva Kama Dugamahi. During the reigns of Maharaja Yudhishthir, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. We have experienced that in some seasons the rain produces abundance, and in other seasons there is scarcity. We have no control over the earth's productiveness, for it is naturally under the full control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his order, the Lord can make the earth produce sufficiently or insufficiently. If a pious king rules the earth according to the Shastric injunctions, there will naturally be regular rainfall and sufficient produce to provide all men. There will be no question of exploitations, for everyone will have enough. Black marketing and other corrupt dealings will then automatically stop. Simply ruling the land cannot solve man's problems unless the leader has spiritual capabilities. He must be like Maharaj Yudhishthir, Parikshit Maharaj, or Ramchandra. Then all the inhabitants of the land will be extremely happy.
Hare Krishna. Sahasrani Deshabam Sanatakesha Chapi Harpo Nele Bhetasyo Sanatana. Translation. This Chitraketu had 10 million wives, but although he was capable of producing children, he did not receive a child from any of them. By chance, all of the wives were barren. Textual. रूपदन्त वयोज्ञानं विद्याशिव्यश्रयः Translation. Chitraketu, the husband of these millions of wives, was endowed with a beautiful form, magnanimity, and youth. He was born as a highly family. He had a complete education and he was wealthy and opulence. Nevertheless, in spite of being endowed with all these assets, he was full of anxiety because he did not have a son. Purport. If it appears that the king first married one wife, but she should not bear a child. She could not bear a child. Then he married a second, a third, a fourth, and so on. But none of them, their wives, could bear children. In spite of all these material assets of Janma Sivarya Shruta Sri birth in an aristocratic family with full of opulences, wealth, education, and beauty, he was very much aggrieved because, in spite of having so many wives, he had no son. Certainly, his grief was natural. Grahastha life does not mean having a wife and no children. Chanakya Pandit says, Putra Putrahinam Graham Sunyam. If a family man has no son, his home is no better than a desert. The king was certainly most unhappy that he could not get son, and this is why he had married so many times. Kshatriyas especially are all allowed to marry more than one wife, and this king did so nonetheless.
Oh, came up. So here we come back to some social instruction, right? So Prabhupada is saying that Grihastha life doesn't mean having a wife and no children. And Chanakya Pandit says, Putrahinam griham shunyam. If a family man has no son, meaning he's a family, but he has no family, right? He only has a wife. If a family man has no son, his home is no better than a desert. Hmm? The king was certainly most unhappy that he couldn't get a son. And this is why he had married so many times. But no issue, no children. Actually, I was just observing. I'm saying this because I'm observing, When I first came to India, like 30 years ago, like all the girls who I met, everybody's waiting for their marriage, Each and every single girl who I met, they were just waiting for their marriage. And they got married also. Then after some time, I saw the girls, when I said, what are you doing? I'm studying. I'm studying first, second, going, studying, right? So then when will you get married? Yes, I will get married, Then they come 28, 29, 30, all right? That's what we observed, 30. And then when they come 29, no marriage, then they go crazy, right? And then when finally they manage to get married, then because if they're highly qualified, then they have to continue to work. Now I'm meeting women who are married, no children. So I ask her, one after the other, I'm not joking, one after the other. It's like now, like 30 years back, all the girls, just eager, wanted, even they were working, they're ready to drop the job and get married. Now, they want to work, and then they come 29, they go mad. And those who manage to cross all this get married. Now, like women who are meeting who are like in their late 30s, or, they don't have children, 40. Then I ask, why, what happened? They say they spend so much time working, that when the time came for children, they couldn't have children. And I would say that now, here, almost every second lady who I'm meeting, they are spinsters. They are not married. Every second who I'm meeting, they are not married. And so, the king was certainly most unhappy that he couldn't get his son. So here we also, either they are not married and so they have no family, then they stay in the family, and then naturally there is fight, right? Because you don't fit in the house, nobody wants you there, right? So because everybody, it's designed by Krishna that everybody should have their own house, right? It's an exchange, right? It's an exchange. I go in your house and you come in my house. It's an exchange, right? And we live very peacefully. So I don't know, this YouTube is such a thing, suddenly popped up. Like I was observing this, and somebody started speaking about it. And gave the entire scenario that's going on in the world and catching on in India also, the entire scenario of marriages, And then another same person, I don't know what talk they do. They say, after so many years, the women will say, no, I don't want to work. I just want to be at home. They will go back. And Actually, I was speaking about that because when I was in the US, I saw these girls, special, like they're coming to the temple, they had to work, and if by good luck they get a husband who doesn't want them to work, they're so happy. And then I was thinking, oh, we had such an impression of Western women, and here all these women are thinking, when will be my good luck? I'll get a husband and I don't have to work. And this man is speaking about this, right? So here, Chanakya Pandit saying, so I mean, too extreme, meaning that those who don't want to marry at all, boys and girls, I don't know what they do with their life. They just work. Yeah, they work. They get a lot of money and they have their own apartment, their own houses or whatever. So they are self-sufficient, self-maintaining, right? And then they're alone. When they're 50, 60, they're alone. Right? They're alone, because they don't have a family. They've been thrown out of the house, basically. Right? They're coming to the temple and see them. Right? So, then you did get married, but you don't have a son. So here it says it's a desert. Right? But more will be said about this. 13. Natasya sampada sarva mahishyo vamalochanaha sarva bhumasya bhuscheyam abhavam priti hetavaha. His queens all had beautiful faces and attractive eyes, yet neither his opulences, his hundreds and thousands of queens, nor the lands of which he was the supreme proprietor were sources of happiness for him. So he had everything, but he had no sons. Tasyaikadaitu bhavanam angira bhagavan rishihi lokananu getan upagachadya drishayaha. Once upon a time, when the powerful sage named Angira was traveling all over the universe without engagement, by his sweet will he came to the palace of King Chitraketu. So it's like the devotee, they go door to door, they walk, and suddenly they knock on somebody's doors. Not that they were planning, right? They had no appointment, nothing, right? They just walked in. Tam pujayitva vidhivat pratyuthanarha nadhibihi kritadhityam upasidat sukhasena samahitaha. Chitraketu immediately stood up from his throne and offered him worship. He offered drinking water and eatables, and in this way performed his duty as a host to a great guest. When the rishi was seated very comfortably, the king, restraining his mind and senses, sat on the ground at the side of the rishi's feet. I was watching, again, all these shows, talk shows, or whatever you call them, I think that was in America. So, just imagine the camera on you. I think there were three of them. They were sitting. One was, I think, a medical person, and the other two were talking, And this one with the Indians, they're Indians. So this one man, how he's sitting? He's sitting like this, all right? And in the camera, you can see his shoes. I think it's so embarrassing, the way they sit, because they have shoes on. And he's showing his feet like this, and I can't remember, how they get cursed. All those demons who appeared. One behaved this way, one showed his feet, one, you're cursed. And I think, oh my God, for me on camera to see this one man, his shoes, then I thought, so they lost their culture, right? So they migrated, and they're like professional people talking. They know what they're talking, but behavior, right? Behavior. And especially, it's very nice actually, all these Facebook and camera. It shows, it reflects on you how you're behaving. Usually you don't look in the mirror, right? when you act in a certain way. Everybody is seeing you, but you don't see yourself. So if he were to watch his own interview, whatever he was doing, how he was seated, and how he was showing his shoes in the camera like this, right? Right. So here it says when the rishi was seated very comfortably. The king, restraining his mind and senses, sat on the ground at the side of the rishi's feet. Yeah, they were interviewing somebody, I think it was an Ayurvedic doctor or something, and he was like elderly person, very humble, very gentle person, and these two younger, but they don't have manners, right? How to be seated, what to show, what not to show, Maharshitam upasinham rasayavanatam kshito pratipujya maharaja samabhasyedam abravit. O King Parikshit, when Chitraketu, bent low in humility, was seated at the lotus feet of the great sage, the sage congratulated him for his humility and hospitality. The sage addressed him in the following words. Angira uvacha apite namavyam swasti prakritinam tathatmanaha yatha prakriti virguptaha oman raja cha saptabhi. The great sage Angira said, "My dear king, I hope that your body and mind and your royal associates and paraphernalia are all well. When the 7 properties of material nature, the total material energy, the ego, and the 5 objects of sense gratification are in proper order, the living entity within the material elements is happy. Without these 7 elements, one cannot exist." Similarly, a king is always protected by 7 elements: his instructor, Swami or Guru, his ministers, his kingdom, his fort, his treasury, his royal order, and his friends. As quoted by Sridhar Swami in his Bhagavatam commentary, Swamyatmatyo janapada durga dravina sanchayah dando mitram cha tasyaitah sapta prakritayo matah. A king is not alone. He first has his spiritual master, the supreme guide. Then come his ministers, meaning his advisors, his kingdom. So a king means a kingdom. What's the use of being a king? We don't have a kingdom, right? His king. His fortifications, his treasury, his system of law and order, and his friends or allies. If these 7 are properly maintained, the king is happy. Similarly, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmin yatha dehe, the living entity, the soul, is within the material covering of the Mahat Tattva, ego, and Panch Tanmatra, the 5 objects of sense gratification. When these 7 are in proper order, the living entity is in a mood of pleasure. Generally, when the associates of the king are quiet and obedient, the king can be happy. Therefore, the great sage Angira Rishi inquired about the king's personal health and the good fortune of his 7 associates. When we inquire from a friend whether everything is well, right? Now we meet, we say, "How are you?" Right? "How are you?" Here, description is given. Actually, what we are asking about, whether everything is well, we are concerned not only with his personal self, but also his family. So we say, "How are you?" He will start saying, "Oh, my husband is not well, or my son has lost his job, or my in-laws are sick," right? Meaning, whole thing will come out, right? We are concerned about everything. Yeah, his family, his source of income, right? Whether he lost his job or he got a new job or he bought a new factory. And his assistant or servant, my servant has left, I have no servant. Right? His assistant, everything is you. You know how we are calling Maharaji, I have no servant. Right? It's a major. All of them must be well, and then a person can be happy, you know. Like I remember during the COVID time, I called this one devotee, so he told me, he said, we all got the virus and my servant also. All right, meaning everything combined, so, and we all got well, so meaning the servant also recuperated. So it's one package, 7 elements now we know. How will ever learn all this? How much information is given in this Bhagavatam? But we are living life like this, like in ignorance, but it's our daily life. Here it is enumerated. Atmanam prakriti shvadha nidhaya shreya apnuyat ragya tatha prakritayo naradeva hitadhayah. O King, O Lord of humanity, when a king directly depends upon his associates and follows their instructions, he is happy. Similarly, when his associates offer their gifts and activities to the king and follow his orders, they are also happy. Therefore, the actual happiness of a king and his dependents is described in this verse. A king should not simply give orders to his dependents because he is supreme, right? Usually say, I say and you do, right? But here, no. Sometimes he must follow their instructions. Okay, what do you want? Tell me. Right? What do you want? You have to listen. What do you want? And then you obey the associates, also the subordinates. Obey them. And then similarly, the dependent should depend on the king. This mutual dependence will make everyone happy. Right? Otherwise, you say, you know, you are the king. You are living in your tower. Right? You are living in your tower. You are not in touch with the ground reality. Usually, this is how we speak these days, right? You are living in your tower of illusion of what is good for me and for you. You are not in touch with the ground reality to know what your praja needs. Right? What are their problems? You don't get among, and unfortunately, this is the situation right now. Doesn't matter at all where you are. We are not in touch with the ground reality, so therefore we are all unhappy. King is reality, so king is always being criticized, or behind his back everybody is doing so many things, right? And people are also unhappy, they rebel. So this mutual dependence will make everyone happy. Apidara prajamatyah bhritya shrenutha mantrintnah paura jana pada bhupa atmaja vashavartinah. O king, all your wives, citizens, secretaries and servants and the merchants who sell spices and oil under your control, meaning spices and oil was so valuable, right? Are you also in full control of ministers and the inhabitants of your palace, your provincial governors, your sons and your other dependents? The master or king and his subordinates should be interdependent. Through cooperation, both of them can be happy. Just see how much instruction is given here. So much instruction, meaning even to run a house, right? Anyway, now people have only one child, right? So it becomes very difficult, extremely difficult. Because it's only demand, you know, like this one doctor told me, the child is going crazy and the parents are going crazy, right? So this one child, so here it is interdependence. Let's read this again. No? Dara, praja, Atmatya. Atmatya meaning your secretaries. Britya, your servants. Shrenya, merchants. As well as Mantrina, ministers. Pauraha, inmates of the palace. Janapadaha, the provincial governors. Bhupaha, landholders. Atmaja, sons. Vashvartinaha, under your full control. See how many people a king has, so many under him, right? So many. Yasyatmanuvashaschatyat sarve tadvashagaime loka sapala yachanti sarve balim atandritaha. If the king's mind is fully controlled, all his family members and governmental officers are subordinate to him. His provincial governors present taxes on time without resistance, and what to speak of lesser servants. Angira Rishi asked the king whether his mind was also under control. This is most essential for happiness. No? Right? Things go wrong and we become so unhappy, so depressed, right? Or angry. Atmana priyate natma parata swata eva lakshaye labdha kamam tvam chintaya sabalam mukham. O King Chitraketu, I can observe that your mind is not pleased. You seem not to have achieved your desired goal. Is this because of you yourself, or has it been caused by your others? Your pale face reflects your deep anxiety. Evam vikalpito rajan vidusha munina pisaha prashraya vanato bhyaha rajakamastatu munhim. Shukdev Goswami said, O King Parikshit, although the great sage Angira knew everything, he inquired from the king in this way. Thus King Chitraketu, desiring a son, bent low in great humility and spoke to the great sage as follows. Since the face is the index of the mind, a saintly person can study the condition of one's mind by seeing his face. When Angira Rishi remarked about the king's discolored face, King Chitraketu explained the cause of his anxiety as follows. Chitraketu ruvacha Bhagavan kim na viditam tapo jnana samadhibhi yoginam dvasta papanam bahiranta sharishu. King Chitraketu said, O great Lord Angira, because of austerity, knowledge, and transcendent samadhi, you are freed from all the reactions of sinful life. Therefore, as a perfect yogi, you can understand everything external and internal regarding embodied, conditioned souls like us. Tathapi prichato bruyam Brahman Atmani Chintitam Bhavato Vidushaschapi Choditastvad Anugyaya. O great soul, you are aware of everything, yet you are asking me why I am full of anxiety. Therefore, in response to your order, let me disclose the cause. Lokapale api prahrityaha Samrajeshwarya Sampadaha Na Nandayantya Prajamam Kshitrit Kamam Ivapare. A person aggrieved by hunger and thirst is not pleased by the external gratification of flower garlands and sandalwood. He's hungry and you're putting flower garlands. Guru Maharaj is hungry, right? He comes, he's hungry, and all disciples are doing puja, right? Oh, him, he's coming from traveling so far, right? Instead of receiving him, take him, please go take bath and come and take prasad. Disciples are doing huge ceremony, right? Huge ceremony. They are doing flower garlands and putting sandal with pulp. As a person aggrieved by hunger and thirst is not pleased by the external gratification of flower garlands or sandal with pulp. I am not pleased with my empire, opulence or possessions, which are desirable even for great demigods, because I have no son. तथा पाहि महाभागा पूर्वे सह गतं तमः यथा तरेमां दुष्पारां प्रजाया तद्विधेहिनः. Therefore, O great sage, please save me and my forefathers who are descending to the darkness of hell, because I have no progeny. Kindly do something so that I may have a son to deliver us from hellish conditions. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, Varnashram Dharma, one gets married simply to have a son who is needed to offer oblations to his forefathers. King Chitraketu responsibly desired to have a child so that he and his forefathers might be delivered from the darkest regions. He was concerned with how to get Pinda oblations in the next life, not only for himself but also for his forefathers. Therefore, he requested Angira Rishi to favor him by doing something that could help him get a son. So that was important. That was important. That this Pinda, right? What we call Pitri, right? So meaning your lineage has to continue. And those who are gone, the ancestors who are gone, they are dependent on that they have left behind, right? A son. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityartitha sa Bhagavan Kripalur Bhamana Sutaha Shrapayitva Charum Twastaram Ayajad Vibhuhu. In response to the request of Maharaj Chitraketu, Angira Rishi, who was born of Lord Brahma's mind, was very merciful towards him, because the sage was a greatly powerful personality. He performed a sacrifice by offering oblations of sweet rice to a star. All right, again he comes, and this is the same Twasta who became the father of Vritrasur. Now he's becoming, he's fabricating a son for Chitraketu. So all our bodies are coming from Twasta, fashion, the fashion designer, right, is Twasta. Jeshta Shrestha Chaya Ragyo Mahishinam Cha Bharata Namna Krita Dutistasvai Jagyo Chishtam Adadvijaha. Parikshit, O Parikshit Maharaj, best of the Bharatas, the remnants of the food offered in the yajna were given by the great sage Angira to the first and most perfect among Chitraketu's millions of queens, whose name was Kritadyuti. Athaha nripatim rajan bhavitaikastavatmajaha harshashoka pradastubhyam iti brahma sutto yajo. Thereafter the great sage told the king, O great king, now you will have a son who will be the cause of both jubilation, harshashok, and lamentation. The sage then left without waiting for Chitraketu's response. He says, take, and then he left. You want? Take. He left. My God, what a gift. right? What a gift. The word harsha means jubilation and shok means lamentation. The king was overwhelmed with joy when he understood that he would have a son. Because of his great jubilation, he could not actually understand the statement of the sage Angira. He accepted it to mean that there would be that would certainly be jubilation because of the birth of his future son, but that he would be the king's only son and being very proud of his great wealth and empire would not be very obedient to his father. Thus the king was satisfied, thinking, let there be a son. It doesn't matter if he's not very obedient. He's going to be the only son, so, he will be proud. I have so much wealth. I have everything belongs to me. So he will not listen to the father. In Bengal, there is a proverb that instead of having no maternal uncle, no chacha, mama, right? No mama. It is better to have a maternal uncle who is blind. A blind uncle is better than no uncle. The king accepted this philosophy, thinking that a disobedient son would be better than no son at all. The great sage Chanakya Pandit says, Kortha putrena jatena yona vidvana dharmikaha kanena chakshusha kimba chakshupi daiva kevalam. What is the use of a son who is neither a learned scholar nor a devotee? Such a person is like a blind, diseased eye, which always causes suffering. Nevertheless, the material world is so polluted that one wants to have a son, even though he is useless. This attitude was represented in the history of King Chitraketu. I think we'll continue next week. We are halfway through now. Okay. My God, such a small reading, but so much information given, right? So much information.